very much.
Cheers, thank you.
We've got to be let into the secret hideout here.
This is it.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Today we're at Bletchley Park. Is that what it's called?
I was expecting to meet Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Cumberbatch.
Any minute now.
I dressed for him today.
He's just inside that little hut right there. This is the home of the famed British codebreakers that broke the code to the Enigma machine in World War II. We're going to go check this out, so let's get to it. The house from the movie,
original,
right?
well, the original Bletchley Park before it turned into an army installation.
Bletchley Park is a country estate west of London turned top secret codebreaker installation, critical to Allies' success in World War II. Germans communicated in ciphers using a coding machine called Enigma. The codes were so complex, it was thought to be impossible to break. So the greatest, strangest, most creative people were brought here to make the attempt. After showing our tickets, we enter, bypassing the gift shop, to take care of a most important mission right away.
I don't know, I haven't got my glasses on. That's what you'd want. If you take that as well, I'll be back.
Very nice. Well done. Here's the man, the original man. He did it himself.
Ages since I've done one. You've all been yours, haven't you?
Are you ahead of your sister in this competition?
Way ahead, but mostly down to you. So, yeah.
I have a gift for you before we leave, by the way.
I was wondering if maybe, just maybe.
There is a handy map available of suggested routes to get the most out of the history and workings of Bletchley Park. The routing includes the original mansion, and then growth into the cottages, deciphering huts, and secret communications buildings. Hello? It's for you. The self-guided tour kicks off with a brief orientation film in Block C.
Great British public huddle around radios, listening to the news. They are preparing themselves.
As the country is being dragged towards war with Germany, the UK recognizes a need for better signals intelligence and decoding efforts, and creates the organization required to decode and process thousands of enemy communications. It was a process. You first had to intercept the radio signals that happened, and you had to figure out how it had been encrypted, and that was the ciphering. And then you actually had to decipher it and then translate it into English so that it could be read by people actually deciding if it was usable intelligence, and they'd cross-reference that with other types of messages they'd received to see the validity of it and how important it was, and then send the intelligence on up the chain. Are you figuring it out, or are you writing your own code?
I'm not writing my own, I'm deciphering one. English words would be handwritten on the typed message. What do you think Hyman means? Right. This word, we're not sure.
And HHX is an abbreviation for a place. By far, the hardest step was breaking the cipher. Using a machine called Enigma, Germans had 159 quintillion different cipher combinations that could be used, and cipher settings were changed every day. The Enigma machine would take words and transform them into other letters. Like here's an example, is that you attack at dawn. This is like a cipher code, and turn it into something that was just unreadable. So that was the job of the people at Bletchley Park, was to figure out how that transformation happened and turn it back into the original wording. For a great explanation of Enigma with 3D animation, check out Jared Owen on YouTube. There's a link in the description. Subscribe, he's got great stuff, and I learned a ton about Enigma from him. Enigma was a complex letter scrambler. You would type a letter on a keyboard, and another letter would light up. Do this for the whole message, then send it in Morse code to the troops, and you have secret encrypted communications. Every time a letter was punched, Enigma swapped letters 7 times. Then a wheel would turn to completely change the encryption for the next letter. so hitting the same letter twice would give different output letters. The wheels that swapped the letters could be changed. There were 5 wheels available, of which 3 were picked to use in the machine in varying orders. In addition, there was a plug board on the front where individual letters could be swapped one more time. This is Enigma here.
Complex and versatile than Enigma.
Okay, this was the British version of Enigma for them sending their own messages? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a Typex machine. Next stop, we pick up handy audio-video guides and head to the Bletchley Park mansion. So, if Benedict Cumberbatch is anywhere, he's up here?
Oh, I should think so, yeah.
There's been a home on this site since the 11th century. In 1883, Sir Herbert Lyon, a financier, bought the estate to be a country escape. Sir Herbert made many modifications to the mansion, adding the turret, expanding the gardens, and adding a ballroom. By 1938, the UK government had bought much of the site to use for new secret code breaking and intelligence efforts. It was the perfect location, quiet, rural, but near enough to roads, rail, and communications to be easily reached from London. We're heading into the mansion, which is staged much the way it would have been in World War II. This is the drawing room that was used by about 70 staff members in 1938 to try to work on intelligence when Hitler was working to take the Sudetenland of Czechoslovakia. In September 1939, when war had been declared, the mansion staff had grown to 180 people, including Dilly Knox, the pioneer codebreaker from World War I, and newly recruited mathematicians Alan Turing and Gordon Welchman. They're looking in for special type of people of the professor type, and that includes Alan Turing, and then even Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, to try to beef up their staff of codebreakers. The mansion had become headquarters of the Government Code and Cipher School, the GC and CS. At its head was Commander Alastair Denniston, who had been in command of signals intelligence since 1919. It was close quarters, and there was barely enough room for everyone in the mansion. These rooms would have been filled with teleprinters, noisy machines, and communications devices. It's like the banquet hall and the billiard room. It's the library. Denniston managed the quirky staff with a light touch and provided plenty of recreation. Painstaking code-breaking work needed to be offset with relaxation and recreation, hence the golf clubs and hockey team.
Yeah, hockey.
This is the tennis courts. Work hard, play hard. Okay, slight detour time. Hut 4 Cafe. I love it. It really is. And now it's got all these huts around it where they were just stuffing people. We're in the garages where all the dispatch vehicles, ambulances, different transportation vehicles were used to move messages back and forth among the different offices, and also to move the staff around. Sunbeam Talbot with the blackout headlamps so that they could drive in the dark. This is a mobile code breaking or listening post that was used in Afghanistan. The staff quickly grew to 620 by mid-1940 and outgrew the mansion. More and more cottages, huts, and blocks of buildings were built to keep up. This is Cottage 1. They started expanding out of the main central buildings. Near the cottages is a memorial to the Polish cryptographers who laid the groundwork for the breakthrough at Bletchley. With help from stolen documents supplied by the French, Marian Rejewski used only mathematics to determine the internal wiring of the machine. A key breakthrough came when Rejewski recognized the Germans placed the letters on the wheels in alphabetical order, not random order, simplifying the math. A team of Poles developed multiple decoding tools, including a rotary machine. These eureka moments, or Bombe in Polish, possibly led to the naming of their machine, the Bombe. In the cottages were Dilly Knox, Mavis Lever, and Turing. Dilly Knox was the pioneer UK cryptanalyst and had been decoding messages since World War I. He worked in the cottages. He was so eccentric, he forgot to invite two of his brothers to his wedding. Just before invasion, the Poles gave all their research to the French and English. Using this, Knox and his team went to work on a newer and more complex Enigma, and by 1940 had broken it, by hand. At 19 years old, Mavis Lever worked on Knox's team. She was a brilliant decoder of Italian ciphers. One of her breakthroughs came when she realized a lazy Italian operator, tasked with sending confusing dummy messages, had merely typed the same letter L over and over. Since letters could not be coded as themselves, having no L's in the coded text was the key to solving the cipher. Simple enigmas could be deciphered by hand by exploiting two design weaknesses, critical flaws. A letter could not be ciphered as itself, and a letter couldn't repeat. The wiring and mechanics wouldn't allow it. Electricity flowed from the starting letter through the wheels, changing letters, and then it reflected back through the wheels. This reflection made it so the current couldn't flow back to the letter where it started. Every time you typed a letter, the wheel advanced a position, so it couldn't repeat a letter. A TT might come out as an MK, but never as an SS. If one used logic to deduce key phrases like weather report, or words like Ein or Heil Hitler that were contained in almost every message, you could compare the words against the cipher. If letters were the same, you knew that wasn't correct. So keep checking the code until you got a match. Early on, when Enigma was simpler, this could be done by hand. But as the Enigma machines became more complex, it became impossible to decipher by hand. To decrypt a complex Enigma, you needed to know which 3 wheels out of 5 to use, in what order, a sliding ring setting, and a starting letter of each wheel, and the plugboard connections, one of 159 quintillion possible combinations. We're making our way into Hut 11, which contains one of the most useful breakthroughs in deciphering complex enigmas and speeding up the code-breaking process. Alan Turing's bombe. The bombe was an electric-mechanical device to run thousands of possible cipher combinations in as little as 20 minutes. It was developed by Alan Turing and Gordon Welchman. Although it looks similar to the Polish version, it operates on different principles that allowed it to decipher the more complex enigmas. As a tribute to the Polish and acknowledging the French contribution, Turing named their device the Bombe, Polish Bombe with a French E. So how does the bombe work? A bombe was made up of 36 Enigma machine simulators running together. The bombe was a way to try to guess the Enigma settings by quickly testing combinations of cylinders and initial letter settings by machine. It did this by eliminating bad combinations. The known words such as weather report would be compared to the cipher. This word-to-cipher comparison was called a crib. Remember, letters couldn't repeat, and a letter couldn't be ciphered as itself. A potential solution was found when the crib comparison didn't break the rules, as in this case, where no letter is translated as itself and no repeated letters repeat. A menu was developed that an operator would use to set up the bombe for a run. The bomb would then run through all the combinations of wheel settings that would transform several letters from the known word, weather report, to the cipher. The machine would stop when it found a possible correct combination. Then operators, using checking machines, would see if the setting produced readable messages. After a number of iterations, the message would be mostly decoded, but with some errors due to the plugboard settings. These were then worked out, and by lunchtime, they would have broken the code. Once they worked out part of the code, they could by hand work out the rest of it, and then they would have the code broken for that particular day, and then could decode all the messages sent that day. The bomb worked like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but the bomb didn't find the needle. It just eliminated most of the hay that wasn't a needle, over and over again, until only the needle was left. There's even an area where you can practice with the bomb to find letters. To be honest, I never really figured out how it worked while I was there. It was kind of confusing. YouTube videos helped after we got home. For a more detailed explanation on how the bombs work, check out the links in the description. 328 bombs were built in total in the UK and the US. They filled Hut 11, where WRNS, the Women's Royal Naval Service, worked full-time. They received and read the menus, plugged up the bombs, then started up the machines. The oily-smelling devices would noisily click away until a stop was found. WRNS checked the results and sent them on. Thanks to the bombs, Bletchley Park became a massive assembly line of code breaking. Find a crib, develop a menu, run it on the bomb, check the stops, complete the key. Finish before noon so you can decipher the hundreds of other messages sent that day, and then do it again tomorrow. In hindsight, the success at Bletchley Park is obvious, notably the misdirection of the Germans during the D-Day invasion that divided and confused their forces. But in 1941, there were major shortages in unskilled staff and typists. The crypt analysts were performing this work, leading to potentially deadly backlogs in decryption. Their urgent requests were getting ignored on the way up the chain of command, so Turing, Welchman, Alexander, and Milner-Barry went over their heads. They wrote a letter directly to Churchill, and Milner-Barry hand-delivered it, taking the train to Euston, and directing a cab to take him to 10 Downing Street. Amazingly, he was allowed entry, and his letter delivered to Churchill, who immediately directed, "Action this day. Make sure they have all they want on extreme priority and report to me that this had been done." Staffing issues prioritized, Bletchley Park continued to expand to almost 9,000 by 1945, with multiple huts and blocks added. The messages went from Hut 6, where they're decoded, passed off to Hut 3. They had a little chute to pass the messages back and forth from Hut 6 here on the right to Hut 3 over here on the left. And so they had, with a string on it, that they could pull a little box back and forth. This is Hut 3. The decoded messages would end up here for processing after Hut 6 had decoded.
Well, it depends. Whether people know what's going on here.
Hut 8 was the domain of Alan Turing. From this office, he continued pioneering cipher work by breaking the much more complex naval Enigma. That work provided critical intelligence for the Battle of D-Day, from listening stations intercepting German intelligence set up in this very room. Turing also worked on an even more complex cipher used by the German High Command, the Lorenz, and broke it with a technique called Turingery. Turing's former math tutor, Max Newman, who also worked at Bletchley Park, used the concepts of Turingery to develop an electronic machine to help decipher Lorenz more quickly. With the help of Bill Tutt and Tommy Flowers, an engineer from the General Post Office, they created the world's first computer, Colossus. It was housed here, where Block F used to stand. You can see it next door to Bletchley Park at the National Museum of Computing, along with a working bombe. The activities of Bletchley Park were kept top secret until the 1970s. But since then, there have been numerous books and movies about the people, code-breaking, and war-impacting stories that all happened right here, where you can go see it. The park has been maintained by the Bletchley Park Trust since 1992. I've got to say that we really enjoyed our day at Bletchley Park and would go back. We were only disappointed by one thing. We never did bump into Benedict Cumberbatch. If you like cool videos like this one, smash that like button and subscribe.